My question is, earlier you were talking about how stories are a metaphor for life, and I don't know if it's just me, but the older I get, I find it becomes more difficult to make sense of the world because things are getting faster and just crazier. But how does one, as an author or a writer, make sense even out of a story you create, or how do you extrapolate even meaning from your own characters or looking at life? What are some tips?
Well, I'm going to talk, of course, about this. The key is the climax. When you create a climax, that story climax that emotionally really satisfies you and makes some kind of beautiful sense out of these characters, the story then tells you its meaning. And it's not unusual to be confused. I mean, this is what most of us go through. We right there going, what the hell is this? What is this about? I mean, or it's just I've seen all this before. There's nothing, and the struggle for meaning is a real struggle. So you create characters, you get them into motion, and you tell the story, and ultimately you come up with a story climax. At that point, if you are still confused, you look at the ending you've created and you ask two questions. What is the core value? What is the core value in its charge at the climax of my story? If the core value, let's say, is love, and it's a negative ending, and that that love breaks your heart, that love is we're better off not having risked in the first place, right? And that love is a painful, tragic thing, all right? And so love turns to despair, to hatred, or whatever. Then you look back through the story and you ask yourself how and why. How and why did this love end up on the rocks? Why can't these people love? How and why were they unable to love? How and why did they end up in this loneliness and this despair? All right? Those two questions, what is the value and its charge, and how and why, creates the controlling idea. That's the meaning. A story says how and why life changes in the way it does. And if that makes, and then you look at that, and if the answer that you abstract from your story makes sense to you, you've created a meaning. And so worrying about meaning before you've actually created a story can be a real, really constipate your writing. And so you just get characters, you get them into action, you create a story, and when it emotionally satisfies you, then you look for the meaning. And the story, if it's well told, has its meaning buried in it, which you can unearth. So my advice is don't worry about it. My advice is don't worry about it. Write story, create characters, tell the story, then let the story tell you the meaning, and I'll talk more about that later.